Hi, viewer. I'm here with Roger.
Van Weide, and we sound like we have about to race.
Yep.
Sound like a race, your recording machine. Beep, beep, beep.
Yeah. Whenever I do certain videos where I have to click a mouse to do certain editing, it always picks up on that, and I'm too lazy to get rid of it. Just like how I'm gonna be too lazy to get rid of this little bit right here.
Hooray, awkward starts. That's nice.
Oh well. That just means I get to play the game that I put over this longer.
What game? You already know what game it is?
I just do a bunch of different ones, and then unfortunately now the ones I commonly play are starting to become a little too common to where all the thumbnails start looking the same.
So it's possible that suddenly there's animal porn playing while talking. And
I don't play animal porn.
Sure.
I play collectathons.
Oh, okay.
The animal porn comes on the internet.
Oh, yeah, but this video will also be on the internet, so I don't know.
What a lovely way to start. I love picturing what the viewer's thinking right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, for those of you who remember, which is probably none of you, I did this preview for a State of the Internet discussion, and I wanted to do it with several people, and I got the first one to do this with. So, after about 20 minutes of going nowhere, we decided to talk about internet critics. So, Roger, why don't you start?
Well, that's putting me in the spot. Internet critics are people that criticize the internet? No.
People who criticize things and then post it on YouTube and think they'll get famous for it.
Right. Are we talking about really official people with big, actual plans, actually scripts, or just vlogs? People just get their thoughts out.
Let's actually do both. Let's start with the vlogs first.
Vlogs. It's kind of weird to me because I really grew up as an animator, so I'm so much into having constantly visuals that support what you're saying, so it's kind of weird to me that so many videos on the internet now are just random video game gameplay where people talk, just like this video now. So
yeah, well, it'd be better than just showing the recording of what I'm doing. It would just look like me just like moving around or something, or like sometimes rocking in the chair, and then people would probably be like, what the hell is he doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand why they're doing it. It makes sense. It's just kind of a weird little, I don't know, culture shock for me to get over it. But yeah, vlogs. The problem with vlogs is I like scripted stuff, and the vlogs that people are becoming very redundant. They repeat themselves a lot, and I much prefer more tighter scripted stuff. I'm horrible with having to talk without a script too, so I'm probably sound like an idiot right now, stuttering and all that.
Sounds smarter than most people I meet in the comment section.
Yeah, but that's not much of a compliment.
Yeah.
I always edit my videos very heavily. I talk awkward, but yeah. But I know vlogs are fine. It's great. You can have something up. Well, just listening to people while you're working on something.
Yeah, that's usually how I work on things like homework. That's what I think is great about certain vlog, like, for example, reviews. You're just listening. Like, I usually put on a movie whenever I'm doing homework, which nothing puts you more alert for math homework than Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. Yeah, I do also put a lot of movies on when I'm working. I guess that's a really thing a lot of people have, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but vlogs, I think it really has a lot to do with how comfortable you are with listening to this person. Most of the time, I don't even listen to people who are very interesting to talk to. Just you know them and they have a pleasant voice, and it's just kind of comfort food to listen to them. I just can listen to Brad Jones talking for hours about just him drinking Pepsi or something stupid. Just it's comforting for some reason,
Yeah. Like, usually, that's why I like certain videos, like, that just kind of... I'm trying to remember the name of it. Like, that's usually why discussion videos, I usually like listening to those. Just because, or comedian videos. Love listening to those.
Discussion videos really dependent on what kind of people there are in it. It's very frustrating when there's one person who's very interesting, has something amazing to say, and is constantly interrupted by some sort of idiot.
or in my case, where my audio, like, just completely overshadows anyone just because of the annoying method I have to, the only real method I have to record this. So when someone else is talking, my voice, no matter how little I talk or any little sound, it will pick it up and almost always overshadow someone else.
Is that the case now? Do I have to talk more exaggerated now, or?
Usually I just suggest to speak a little loud, and then I just shut up as much as I can.
All right. Yeah, that also sucks. Yeah, sound balance also a problem I have a lot with my own videos.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, for the other reviewers, the ones that are scripted,
yeah,
what do you think of those?
That's such a broad statement to make. It really depends. We're talking about what. It's really the new media, I guess. It's funny how reviews are becoming more actual entertainment rather than the movies itself lately. So that's kind of interesting.
Sometimes this works completely against it. Like there's a guy, Movie Bob, who I talk about him. I've talked about him too much. But I remembered, like, at the very least with his older videos, he just, he was able to just at least keep everything somewhat to the point and not go on too long. And then, like, if you watch one of his Game Over Thinker videos, they go on for like 20 minutes and most of it's just sketches. Like, I remembered in his most recent one, a person was like, "Why'd you put sketches and stories?" And then he's like, "Did you see what's going on outside? How could I not put this?" And then I hate that I hate it when people do that, just bypass the original question with some stupid joke.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, that's of course always a balance with people. How much are you trying to be funny by yourself, or how much are you depending on your topic? For me, it's very important to stay focused on your topic. When I make a parody, I have to, it's about the parody, it's not about me. So I try to keep myself as a person as much out of it as possible. There's always a lot of internet reviewers who just love themselves and just want to show off how funny they are. And I guess there's also an audience for that, so it really depends on your taste.
Yeah. Admittedly, when the few times I've reviewed games, I'm, again, somewhat lazy, so at the very least I have just like a piece of paper that I just kind of write basics on, and then just kind of improvise. Like, more often than not, have things already, like the stream and all that, already edited, so then I just talk over it, like the video editing thing I have right now. There's this thing that gives me the option to narrate, so that's just what I do.
Alright, cool. I'm really bad in coming up with stuff on the spot, so I'm always working scripted. I always have jokes planned way ahead.
Yeah, and I don't, usually for me, I try to just be to the point. Like, right. A lot of the reviews are just very short, and that's one thing I hate with a lot of reviews that just go on for like 40 minutes or 30 to 40 minutes. Even worse is when all that...
How do you feel those 40 minutes? How do you fill those 40 minutes, of course?
It's
even... to say that they can go on forever, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. The worst is when the review, it just becomes a rant.
Yeah, I hate rants.
Yeah. Disguised as a review, like...
Yeah. A review is kind of losing its meaning anyway. Most people just talking or just making jokes. It's not really a review. A lot of people review things that aren't even relevant or for sale anymore, so what's the point? What's the point of reviewing a Game Boy game? Who's gonna buy the Game Boy game?
Me.
At best, you're gonna download an emulator, but then, there's still not much for... Yeah.
Unless you're me, who just loves to be authentic.
I guess authentic is unique, but a lot of people can't buy the most old systems anymore. They're becoming rare. So.
Yeah. Which, and then some break and all that.
All right. But yeah, I don't have to be authentic myself. I prefer emulators. But sometimes old game systems don't have working emulators. So for Sega Saturn, I actually have to track one down because I can't get anything to work on my computer.
And it's sold so horribly too.
Yeah, poor thing. Oh well.
Usually, when it comes to me buying games, usually I already have kind of a set idea, and then I just save up. But yeah, I don't really spend a lot of money.
Of course, it's expensive stuff.
Yeah, I'm like my mom and my grandpa. I'm a complete miser.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Going off topic, I guess. So
Yes. Back to the actual discussion. For me, with a lot of the big online guys, on one hand, I do enjoy watching some of their stuff, but then after a while, it just becomes burnout. Especially when I want to actually get some good knowledge on a certain product. Then you go, oh hey, a review for this. I wonder what this has to say, and then it's like 5 minutes of review and 20 minutes of sketch.
Oh, yeah. Those people exist, yeah, and they try to be funny themselves instead of their subjects. But, again, there's an audience for it, so they have a reason to exist. You just have to pick out your reviewers, your personalities that fit more to your taste.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty of people.
Yep, it's an ocean.
Dude, there's so many reviewers on the internet, you would have to have some sort of unique perspective, otherwise why existing, why talking, what's the point?
Mm-hmm. And that's like with my reviews, again, for me video making's pretty much a hobby, so for me just the reviews that I do, I just prefer, I'm going to try to be unique by just being to the point.
Alright.
That's actually, yeah.
Wow, that's sad.
I know I see so many reviews that just go all over the place and all that I just figure, where's something that's just simple and to the point?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when all else fails, do it yourself, right?
Yeah, that's always a good technique. It's kind of how I started Sonic Dissected. I hated a lot of Sonic people always over emotional and angry. And thought, we need someone who's more calm.
Mm-hmm.
Even I fail, so it's hard to remain nice and friendly and calm and neutral all the time.
Which that's just normal.
Of course it is. So it's all a balancing act.
If you're talking in a conversation like this, just normal.
Yep.
But yeah, that's kind of the thing with a lot of the internet reviews. And we were talking about the word overrated.
Yeah, it's the word overrated. The word itself is overrated. Well, the thing about the word overrated is that a lot of people mistake it for it being an actual judgment on a movie. Well, to me, it's more a judgment on a person who's saying the word. When you say something is overrated, you're essentially saying, I don't understand why others like it. You don't really say this movie doesn't deserve, or it isn't good. So it becomes more about people than about the subject.
Mm-hmm. And then, have you ever seen Egoraptor's Link to the Past versus Ocarina of Time video?
Yes, I saw it.
This is another thing that annoys me with things like when people say stuff like, these things haven't aged well and all that.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, just the whole, these things haven't aged well type of argument?
Yeah, well, what to say about that? Of course, context is very important to how you play a game. A lot of my favorite games, I can't recommend them to new audiences because you are no longer in the correct state of mind where it's impressive. Like a lot of the first 3D games, where it's like, oh my god, look at what we can do. Well, now it's no longer interesting. So yeah.
Or for some people, it's just too much, like, say, a collectathon.
What? I don't understand.
Like, a lot of people complain about collectathons.
Including me, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about it?
Like, I love collectathons and all that.
Of course, that's your right. Everyone has their taste.
Fun fact, for a paper in college, I chose to do a subject on those.
Oh, okay. So what was your big point?
It was more or less just explaining what the genre was and all that and where its appeal comes from.
Yeah.
Which for me, the big appeal is, considering it's in 3D and there's no real big linear aspect, it's really easy to get sucked into the game.
And of course, people just like collecting things. Place that does things to our brains, like shiny things and collecting.
Mm-hmm. For me, when a collectathon does something bad, it's usually one of two things or both. When there's just a bunch of items that have no point, or you don't even get anything for getting them. Or worse, when you have to get a certain item, like, have you ever played Banjo-Kazooie?
Yeah.
You know how you get notes to get through the doors and all that?
Yeah.
And then you die or you leave the level and then they all come back.
Yeah.
Still trying to. I've almost beaten that game. I'm trying to get to Gruntilda, but yeah, I gotta get those notes.
But yeah, that is an important thing. How important are the things you're collecting? I noticed that with myself, and if the game forces me too much, where you have to find all these things or the next level won't unlock, I really get angry quick. But if it's more gradual, more like you're collecting money in the level, you can buy upgrades for it, then I'm much more excited about collecting. So it's a weird brain trick. It really depends. But I guess another thing that appeals people to stuff like Banjo-Kazooie, those open collecting games, is that because there's less narrative, because it's more open and screwing around, you kind of feel more like you're part of the world. You're not walking in corridors or going through hoops. Like in a Mario game, you're constantly stuck in specific levels, specific challenges constantly, while in Banjo-Kazooie it's much more like you're this bear in the world, have fun, and walk around, do whatever you want. So that kind of works on a level in your brain as well.
Admittedly.
But yeah.
Usually when there's just a bunch of collectibles, usually, like, you ever noticed a lot of people just love to judge things, like, again, let's tie this back with the internet reviews, like, a lot of people judge, like, how easy it is. I think a great example is The Completionist. Have you ever seen him?
No, but I know complete people who would like to get a 100% in games, yeah.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of people who judge, like, how hard it is to get the big 100% and then start complaining about that, too.
I don't understand this obsession. I do understand the obsession with 100%, but not that they are angry if it's fun to get 100% or not. To me, it's always torture to get 100%, even in my favorite games. So, like, if you're that obsessed, you're causing your own pain. I'm sorry.
For me, I've only 100%ed a few games. Like, admittedly, the advantage for me is, like, if I do 100% a game, that puts me in a perfect position to say something about it. Like, I was having a conversation, like, some people were just talking about Sonic Adventure 2 being bad, and I was just saying, no, they were talking about the mech stages being bad, and I was like, no, I like those, and then you're like, well, probably just nostalgia, and then I was thinking, and then I even told them, well, I don't know, I've 100% beat the game, I guess I have something I'm pretty sure I have some credibility to say something.
Yeah, well, then that's kind of snobbish. I mean, of course, those levels work on a different level than the Sonic level, so it's logical that a lot of people don't like them as much, but they do have appeal on themselves, so it's kind of snobbish to say, you can't possibly like them at all.
Oh, a better example would be Donkey Kong 64, which, again, I 100% did that game, and then when I hear people talk about that, like, oh, this game's really hard and all that, and I'm just like, well, I completed it. Wasn't that bad. It might just be because I always played a lot of, like, I played very few games, so the few ones I did, I just got pretty good at them.
Well, that helps too. When I was a kid, I was much better in video games, mostly because I had less choice. It's like, okay, this is your video game for the weekend, and you keep dying, but you just keep going on, because what else are you going to do? But now I'm a boring adult, and I have 5 million games waiting for my attention, and 500 chores to do, and taxes, and work, and girlfriend. So, yeah, now I have no patience for bullshit. The game pisses me off, like, okay, bye.
Yeah, and this is another thing back to internet reviewers where they sometimes forget, like, they're an adult, they're not they don't, sometimes the audience, more often than not, it seems like they don't know exactly entirely what the audience is, or, like, they'll just speak at it from their perspective and their perspective alone. And just assume that everyone's going to think like them.
Yep. But yeah, it depends on people. There are people who are able. I like Red Letter Media. They are usually able to look at movies for what they are. Like, okay, this is clearly children's movie, so let's look at it from that perspective. But yes, there are people who always judge everything on their level. Like, everything has to be a courtroom drama or a Shakespeare classic or whatever. Yeah.
And then this is, I think, where so many people complain about things like plot holes, where I think, again, with the whole, I think some people figure in order to be a credible reviewer, you have to, like, be all this big in-depth stuff, and then they'll just try to find more in-depth stuff for things that aren't really even there.
Well, the thing about plot holes is it's fun to look for them. It's kind of like a brain exercise, or just comical. It's like a little surprise in your cereal box. But, a movie doesn't have to be completely logical if that's not the point of the movie. Like in a courtroom drama or a detective story, then yes, the fact that everything fits together like a puzzle is relevant and important. But in some movies, it's more about emotional energy or just action, or sometimes it's just not necessary. But it's still fun to look at plot holes. But they shouldn't be really.
They're not as big of a deal as people have made them out to be.
Exactly. It's like this obsession that everything always has to be perfect. Well, more like, it depends on what kind of movie. You can't do everything perfect at the same time. And as a movie maker, you have to make decisions. What is the most important thing? Do I want a lot of action sequence, or do I want a story that makes logical sense? Do I want the hero just call the police and make them deal with everything, or just do I want a stupid chase sequence? It's a balancing. It's a compromise. You can't do everything perfect, so yeah.
Admittedly, calling the police could actually make a good idea for kind of a suspense movie where a person's like stuck somewhere, they call the police, and then they have a while before they're even going to show up, so they have to wait a good long while, and then focus on.
Exactly. Depends on what kind of movie, of course.
If I ever did make a movie, I'd probably want to do something like that.
If I would do like something like a slasher movie, I'd do more stuff like that. That they try much more effort to connect the outside world. Yeah, that's something slasher movies never do. Then again, I would never do a slasher movie because I hate them. But whatever.
I like some.
And then Elm Street. Yeah, it's indeed one of the better ones. More fantasy and more adventurous. But we're going off topic again, I guess.
Well, at least our off-topic points at least connect back to the subject.
Fair enough, yeah.
And also, how about things like adaptations and interpretations? What are your thoughts on that?
That's, again, you constantly ask those big open things. It really depends what we're talking about.
Here's an example. Let's just say, how the Dark Knight series has a bunch of fans, and most people just saying that is the right way to do Batman. Then people complain about the Tim Burton and Adam West versions.
All right, yeah.
Despite liking them prior.
Yeah, that sucks, I guess. Yeah, what to think about that? This is a boring video like this.
Well, then I guess this can at least make somebody feel better that they're short, but at least constantly something happening video is better than our long paused video.
One thing I kind of like it that when you do an adaptation or a reboot, you give it a different spin. Like, let's see what happens. But it's really annoying when you feel they finally get something right. Like, okay, this is the essential Batman movie. This is how it should be, and then let's give it up and let's go a completely different route. It kind of feels like losing something.
And then for representing a certain series, for me that one is always just kind of like when I talk to people about things like movies and video games, like when they're adapted, like comic books and video games. For me, one big part that I don't hear a lot of people talk about is like how a series or character is represented mostly just depends on what you know of the character. And then most people, like reviewers and people who talk about it, seem to more often than not, don't give a clear idea as to where they got their thoughts on it from. Like, say, Batman, for example, like, you could be a big fan of the comic books, or maybe a fan of the Burton movies, the Nolan movies, or a combination of them. So saying, like, oh, this thing doesn't represent Batman all that well, it's kind of just a very vague statement just because there's been so many interpretations.
Yeah, there's many layers to them, and most people usually just grab one thing, which usually results in that annoying logic, that simple logic. Well, Batman is about being dark, so it should always be dark, or something. They're just the whole complicated character and all the possibilities, and they just slam it in one theme and one word. Like, this word represents this whole series. It's but yeah, it is tough to deal with it.
Here's an interesting thing. Like, most, even again, reviewers and people who discuss things, I've noticed they can't, more often than not, they have a hard time discussing something beyond like one trait. Like, if you were to describe a certain character, most people probably couldn't really do it outside of one or two words.
Yeah.
And then it's even worse when most people don't even care much about the character in general. Like for a minor character that had a little bit more depth to them that gets flanderized, most people just assume, they were always like that.
Yeah, that is very annoying indeed.
Kind of like Amy from Sonic, who nobody really cared about, and then it's just those characters are very easy to flanderize.
Very easy, yeah.
And for
Especially when there's a lot of parodies, then parodies start taking over the actual facts of the show, which is why it's very important usually to have a very strong, real main writer on your series to really understand the little subtleties.
Yeah.
Newcomers usually tend to simplify everything to its basics. Yeah.
And then, that can become annoying, especially if you like plenty of certain characters, and then seeing them become less important, and then all that. Especially, here's another thing, like, again, we could kind of go back to this overrated, but how about the opposite when people go, it's underrated and all that, or not given enough attention?
Well, what do you mean?
Like, when people like a certain thing, but then they feel like it's not getting the attention they think it deserves.
Yeah, well, that's typical nerd behavior. Like, yeah, I'm a fan of something underground. Like, I have something to fight for. People just like causes. They like fighting wars about simple things about their personality.
Mm-hmm. At worst, it completely takes over them. You ever heard of labeling people?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and then once you start doing that, you stop seeing them as a person, and then it's easy to do plenty of bad stuff. And then eventually, with enough time, that said person can have the exact same thing where they just turn into the label. Like after years, like say an old lady, like someone's just called like some crazy witch lady. Like after a good long while, they'll just start to believe it.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Easy for that to happen on the internet, especially in comment sections where to most people things are just words on a screen or just some voice that you don't have to confront.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then people don't want to give that up.
No, they love it, but of course it makes sense. The internet is one of the last places where individuals can really have any sort of power. The big places are taken over by rich people. On the internet, everyone is equal in power, so it's equally terrifying as something to fight for. Yeah.
Yeah, until a lot of those small people start forming their own group and then do a reverse of that. Like, it's pretty much like the oppressed becoming the oppressors.
Yep, that's what happens. We're all the same, all have the same flaws.
Mm-hmm. But then, they figure, well, it's for this thing, so it's fine.
Yeah. People are very good in coming up with excuses.
Yeah, everyone has their justification for doing something bad.
Yep, yes we do. Humans are very good at that.
Anyway. Anything else?
Not really a more specific thinker than making big statements.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this.
Sure.
See y'all next time.